On October 15th, Silverado Socrates is hoping that you will mark an X beside her name on Municipal Election Day. Silverado, thanks for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. You've run for, this is your second time, I think, for mayor. You've run for a few other political offices as well. Why do you believe you would make a good mayor for the city of Kelowna?
I've lived in this region for many moons. I say I was born again in Kelowna when I changed my name. I don't know if you know that there's a movie called Silverado.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So, kind of talking out my hat when I say world pace to world peace, but in that movie, it's only a 2-hour movie, and they saved the town of Silverado. I think with the help of a few friends, we could turn this town around and instead of being known as the high spot of crime in Kelowna, or the Canada, I should say, it could be, like I said, world pace to world peace. I'm not talking out my hat. I'm talking out my heart. It's amazing what you can do when you work together.
How do you do that?
How do we do that?
Yeah, how do we do that?
You have to have a vision.
What's your vision?
Well, I have a song called Drunk on a Dream. And actually, I said before that I was going to keep it a little bit under my hat, the idea of a music video. Do you remember back in the day in the 80s, there was a riot?
Here,
and Kelowna made the news all over the world with that. I think we can make the world news in a better way. So I'm working on some ideas of some fun videos, music videos.
Why are you running? Well, like, what's your message? What message do you want to get out there?
Well, heart disease, cancer, the biggest cause is stress. War is a problem. Why aren't we investing more in peace? And not through drugs, not just what's happening now is so sad. As you know, I've had a business of trail riding for many years on the West Kelowna side. And it was very sad for me to take care of people for a couple hours, but then know when they're not with me, there's predators out there. I've had people that come riding, and I generally ask them, what do they, why are they here? And one of the saddest things is when I had a group with about 5 young ladies, mostly from Vancouver, and they were here for a funeral, and they've been to more funerals than I had. That's sad. Drug overdose or suicide. Yes. That's very sad. Our best resource is our people, and we're losing them in the prime time of their years. They don't know why they should live another 20 years. They don't even think about their grandkids. I want to see a vision of 2067, our bicentennial year for Canada, where everyone gets on board with it. Whether you or I may not be alive in 2067, I hope to be, but there's a lot of people that will have children that should be alive at that time and have a world worth living for. And we have to create that idea of 2067, a vision that we can all jump aboard, And that's the biggest, think beyond a 4-year election cycle, right?
We'll meet in City Park. It's a date. It's a date. We'll meet in City Park. It's a date.
Okay.
2067.
Sounds good.
I know you're very passionate about the homeless issue, about people on the streets and whether they have drug issues, whether they have mental health issues, or whether it's happenstance and circumstance. Can you talk about that part of your passion and what you would like to see done to help those people, to get them a leg up, to get them off the streets?
Well, again, you got to look before that, and we're trying to bail out the boat instead of fixing the hole, right? I am one of those examples. ridiculous that I became homeless when I was helping a lot of people that were homeless. I had that subsidized housing thing going on, and there's things that aren't on the books. There's so many people that are helping other people. And I talked a little about it maybe last night at the forum, maybe with people at the Rutland event, I'm not sure. But there's a lot of great landlords out there, and I think we should be talking to some of the heroes out there and maybe even offering respite and some training instead of letting them get burnt out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was one of those people, and the interior health people were saying, like, you take some of our more challenging clients, yet I didn't get support when there was trouble. Sometimes the police would come for something, and I was respected about as much as the client that had potentially, well, I think a lot of people can relate with this.
Who gave you that leg up?
Who gave me that leg
Yeah.
up? Which, in what respect to what?
Well, when you said you were homeless, who kind of grabbed you and helped you find your way
I had 10
back?
different homes
Yeah.
at that one first year. One of them was at a shelter.
Yeah.
And I went there because I had a condo a friend let me stay in over the winter, but my dogs had to stay in my truck. So when it got really cold, I ended up bringing them to my workspace. I was working near, off of Kirshner.
Mm-hmm.
I was working at a bakery outlet, and I was worried about getting fired, to be truthful. So then I'd found In From the Cold, which was just on Sutherland at that time. It was very close, so I was able to go there, and it was amazing. But my couple days that I spent at the store, I was so stressed, I ended up losing my job. And it was ironic, I'd finally had stability with my sleeping situation, but then I lost my job because I was in a 3-month trial period. So I got to know firsthand a lot of the people. I was one of the few that didn't have drug issues or alcohol issues at that point. I had 2 dogs to feed and 6 horses, and they were living in lake country. I eventually got a job working full-time, doing post-construction cleanup. It was pretty challenging, if you can imagine. And so that my employer was amazing, very flexible. I got that employer through someone I knew through the Unitarian Church. So I could say the Unitarian Church, a couple people there helped me out. Music people helped me out. But there came a point where my phone got stolen. At the shelter, I'd left and it was charging when I went to go to work. I came back, it was gone. And I didn't want to be somewhere where I didn't trust. I didn't know who took it, right? I still don't understand why they didn't tell me, because they had cameras and things. But for whatever, I'd had an opportunity to potentially bring my horses to a place in Kelowna, where I'm at now. Mm-hmm. And they suggested that if I do the fencing, I could have 1 month free. So I just started fencing right then and there, and I've been there ever since. It took me a couple weeks before the fencing was finished. But I would say they were the biggest factors in my getting stability, offering me a place. I had to work hard to get that place. But
And if we have more people like that, you believe that, that we can help a lot more people?
Yeah, take a bit of, but maybe have a set of a vetting situation, like, you know.
You talk
We do
about
that for dogs and cats. We treat people worse than.
Of course, it's sometimes better. You mentioned crime, and I think it's something that everybody is afraid of right now in this community. How do you see crime, and how do you see the city dealing with it in a positive way?
How we could deal with it more positively.
Yeah.
Well, along those same line of thinking, if you treat someone like an animal, they'll act like an animal. If you treat someone with respect, they tend to give you respect. So again, I've got a lot of friends through having lived at the shelter. They know I basically mind my own business, do my own thing, and I share I would go back there with apples and different things to the shelter. I maintained my friendships. There's some cases where it wasn't so friendly. Like I remember I was sick. It was really cold. I was sick, coughing, and of course you cough and you wake everybody up when you're at a shelter. And then I'd got sick because the person next to me was sick. It happens. And then I remember someone saying something about, complaining about my dogs and how they could get a home and you might get dinner too, implying that whoever got them was going to eat them. And that's pretty low, right? I didn't laugh. Nobody laughed. In fact, afterwards, people were giving me scraps for my dogs. There's many more nice people there. There were so many nice people there. I think they didn't like what those guys said, and they didn't say anything to them, but they gave me leftovers for my dogs. Isn't that cool?
It is. It is. Affordable housing. We're again, same thing. We need to get people not only off the streets, but people that are, that can't necessarily afford the rent that they're at. Whether they, do I pay rent? Do I buy food, so to speak? How do we help them?
Well,
How do you help them?
I think we can focus more on the good stories.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of really good things going on. We don't hear those things. We hear the bad, and then people never want to rent again. Yeah. But there's so many more good stories, and maybe working together to talk about those problems and solutions. It's not necessarily rocket science.
City need to build more?
I don't think so. We need to utilize what we have and learn to. I talked a bit about this. I once paid money to be for a TED Talk on building sustainability with William McDonough, and I was really, really nervous about the idea of speaking in front of people. But then as I got thinking about it, there was so much to be said. It wasn't. I was getting frustrated because can have the most incredibly efficient building, but if people don't get along inside of it, what's the point? So then I came up with the chorus of a song that I would later sing at my brother's funeral called Peace in the Valley. And the chorus is, got to stop consuming things and start producing thoughts. Got to live for what we have, not forget those we've lost. The truth is here and now, my friends. Future will never be until we learn to live in peace in our own valley. And do you know what I'm saying when I say that? We got to learn to live together. And before there's an emergency situation, like remember when there's the fires and everyone's living at Mount Bushery Complex? Yes. We could do that, right? Think of Flintstones. There wasn't fires it's made of rock, right? But they went and did the fire drill. It was a social thing, right? Yeah. So maybe we can, before there's an emergency, practice these kind of things. Sure. Do you know what I mean?
I do, exactly. Last thing I want to do is Silverado, is give you an opportunity to speak into the camera, speak to the voters of Kelowna, and tell them why they should vote for you on October the 15th. Why should they put a little check mark beside your name?
Well, I think that we can do a lot together. And you'll save a lot of money because I'm now on disability. Instead of making money and paying taxes with my business, with a little support, I could have been doing that. I would love to have a salary that I could. Oh yeah, did you know that not only did I lose my place of business and my home, but the powers that be, because I didn't pay my taxes for 10 years, they assumed that I still would have been paying the same rate. They didn't know about my housing investment and loss of $500,000 basically. So I owe $100,000 to Revenue Canada, and there's interest on that. So I hear there was a salary increase. So potentially, not only could I pay off that debt, but with the salary, I could redo a better Mandy and Me, which would be like a Peace Corps, and potentially have, people learning skills. There were so many skills that were taught at the ranch back in the day. Kids don't necessarily learn a work and moral ethic in school, right?
Yeah.
And that goes on for generations. So we can start teaching people that never learned those basic skills. As adults, they can still learn. We all can still learn. It doesn't stop when you leave school.
Silverado Socrates, thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with us, speak to the voters of Kelowna, and good luck on October 15th in your quest to be Kelowna's new mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.